This is a block and crankshaft for a Dodge Cummins 12 valve. So I was in the process of reassembling the engine here, and this is the second time now that I've put this crankshaft into the block, and I created myself a problem the first time I installed it. These caps are numbered, and it's very important to go back exactly where they came from. I like to watch when I take an engine apart that the parts like this are numbered, and so I've known about this for probably 35 years or so, that components like that have to go back exactly where they came from. So either overconfident or not paying attention or not careful, or a combination of all of those. I had the caps lined up on the workbench something like this. This is from a different engine, and so I would take I had the bearings already installed. I would take a cap, put it in place, take another one, and so forth till I had all the caps in place. Then I started to tighten them down. I wasn't up to torquing yet, but as I was tightening down, I noticed on cap number 3 something didn't seem right, and I looked and I had put that cap on backwards. So I took the cap back off, and I had damaged the alignment dowels that insert into the cap, and those are very important for lining the cap up precisely on the block. And the caps are machined with the block as one, and so I don't like to replace these dowels, because even though the dowels might look the same, it could actually shift that cap over a little bit, and so that's where this video is headed. So the crank is already in, so what I'm going to show you next is before I had installed the crank here the second time. But yeah, so I pulled the dowels out of this cap and put it into cap number 3, and I could feel also, like I would check by hand, like the alignment from the cap to the block, and I suspected that the cap may have been moved over maybe a quarter of a thou, you know, it was just so slight, or you know, half a thou would probably be too much of a guess. But so I compared it to the other ones, like the factory ones that I hadn't made any alterations to, and I found one of the other caps on the block that was just ever so slightly even more out of alignment than cap number 3. Looks like it'll be alright. And so the video that I'm going to play now is from previous, when I already had the crank out, and so that's where this video is headed. I think I bought this straight edge about 15 years ago for doing engine work, and it's pretty handy, but I don't use it very often. For today's project, it sure comes in handy again. And it's long enough to go right through this Cummins 12 valve block. And right now I'm checking the alignment of the caps on the one side. So I've lined that straight edge up with the parting edge of the cap and the block on both sides, and fairly well lined up. So my thinnest feeler gauge is this one here, 1.5 thou, but unfortunately it's like a really long one. I'd rather have the, you know, a short little one like this, but this is 2 thou. So I went in there checking each location to see if I could get that feeler gauge under there, and it was seemed to be a fairly nice alignment. I could not get that feeler gauge under there. So I'm going to try a different position. I'm going to rotate the block and have the straight edge in a different position. I rotated the block, and once again I tried to line up the straight edge with that parting line of the block and the caps. So the straight edge is actually resting on the caps. I've repositioned the block again. Now that straight edge is laying on the upper part of the main bore. And I'm using these piston oiler openings to line up the straight edge.